Hey, what's going on, everyone? So I haven't done one of these videos in a while, but I finally have a little bit of free time, and I wanted to talk today about being a first base coach because I put up a video of Joe Adell a couple of days ago. He hit a ball down the third base line. Austin Riley dove and caught the ball on the bounce. Adell thought the ball went down the third base line and got down into the corner, so he started to round first base to head to second. The ball was thrown from Riley across the field, and he was out at first. Now, a lot of people have commented, have written to me about the role of the first base coach. Now, someone said that on a different angle, they saw that the first base coach was waving him to second base, and that's why he tried to turn and go to second base. I did not see that angle, but I want to talk today about the role of the first base coach. Now, this is what I have experienced as a player for a really long time. Also, now I am a coach. I have never technically coached first base. As a coach, I've always coached third base. But I talk to our first base coach all the time about their responsibilities. And I made a list and I jotted down all the things that we talk about. This is a lot of things that I learned as a player. I've had tons of different first base coaches at the major league level, at the minor league level, at the college level. And these are a lot of the things that all of them talk about. So let's go through them one by one because I want everyone to understand exactly what happens on a major league field with a first base coach. Okay, so let's start with this. In my opinion, most of the responsibilities of a first base coach start when the runner actually gets to first base. So the thing about the Joe Adell video, and if you haven't seen it, just go back and watch it. It's the video that I just put up. A lot of people said that the first base coach should be directing him, right? Run through the bag or take a turn or whatever. In my experience, the first base coach doesn't tell the batter what to do. When the batter hits the ball, they never go and pick up the first base coach. Never in my life have I ever hit a ball and then looked at my first base coach and said, okay, do I go to second? Do I run hard through the bag? Do I go for a triple? Like, that never happens. Why? Because when I hit the ball is in front of me. So I hit it, I see where it goes, and I watch it. And that's as I'm running, right? And so sometimes people are taught when they're younger, they get yelled at for watching the ball. It's like, don't watch the ball, just put your head down and run. In my experience at the major league level, as you get older, at the pro level, you don't just put your head down and run. You hit the ball, you start to run, and you just turn your head just a little. The whole field's right here. Right? So sometimes you don't even have to turn your head. If you hit the ball to the right side, you're literally like running right at the ball. But on a ball down the third base line, you hit it. And literally, when Austin Riley caught that ball, Adell was like still just getting out of his follow through. Right? So like you hit the ball and then you watch it and you see what happens to the ball. Does it get caught? Does it go through to the outfield? How far to the outfield does it go? And then you're starting to decide, can I make it to second base? But that always takes place in my head. Like, I'm making the judgments. I'm never hitting a ball. Even if it gets down the line, I'm not running down the line and then looking at the first base coach to see, do you want me to go to second or do you want me to stay here? No, never, ever, ever in my life have I ever done it. I've never been coached to do it on any team I've ever played for. That's including every major league and minor league team that I've ever played for. The first base coach has never told the base runner what to do. It's on the hitter, who is now the base runner. Right? So I make my decision if I want to go to second or if I want to slam on the brakes. And I'm watching the ball that whole time. So I'm sorry to make that so long, but that is how it has always been for me as a player, and that's how it is as a coach. I don't have our first base coach tell the batter what to do. It's on the batter. So with all that being said, what are the responsibilities of the first base coach? So I made a nice list here. It starts off with, again, when the runner gets to first base is where it typically starts. So first thing I have down is situations. So the outs, the score, and the base runner. So when you get to first, the biggest thing, and you'll see it every single time, and I have a stopwatch here because it's a big part of being a first base coach. Runner's going to get on first base. The first base coach is going to come up to the runner, and you'll see them a lot talking in their ear. What are they talking about? Well, there's tons of stuff that we're going to go over. So first thing is outs. How many outs there are? We're going to say this over and over and over again. It's the most important thing. When you're running the bases, how many outs dictate how you run the bases. So you need to know the amount of outs. The score, what's the score? Are we up big? Are we down big? Is it a close game, right? That's going to change how I run as a base runner. So if we're down by 6 in the last inning, my run doesn't mean anything. And so I need to know that I can't be aggressive, right? I'm not going to play station to station, but I'm not going to take any chances, right? So first base coach is going to remind me of the score in that situation. Where the base runners are. Most base runners should know if it's first and second or first and third or bases loaded, but sometimes, maybe they forget. So say, hey, got first and second here, runner in front of you, or we've got bases loaded on the ground, we got to go, right? Like situational stuff like that, nice and easy, but we're just going over the situation. Super important, happens in between every single pitch. Next thing is to pick up your outfielder. So when you're running at first base, you got to know where those outfielders are. So when the ball is hit, you don't have to turn and look and see. You already know where they are, especially the right fielder because he's behind you. Right? So I don't want to have the ball hit and then I've got to turn and look and say, oh, he's playing way in the gap. I didn't realize that. Right? If the ball's hit over my head and I already know that the right fielder's playing in the gap, then bang, the ball's hit and I'm off. I'm going with less than 2 outs. I can make that quick read. So as a first base coach, I'm always just reminding the base runners, or again, if I'm the base runner, I would always get the first and be like, hey, check your outfielders. And as a runner, like you're used to doing it, but it's just part of the repetition of the first base coach. Pick up the outfielders, know especially where the right fielder is. Pitcher's tendencies, this is huge. So especially if I'm a base runner, I'm going to be told by the first base coach a lot of things. Now, hopefully I've studied this on my own. I've looked at film, but the first base coach, that's one of their responsibilities. So maybe the guy's got really quick feet and a quick pickoff move. I need to know that. Maybe I'm going to shorten up my lead a little bit. Maybe he's got really slow feet and I can expand my lead a little bit. Maybe it's a guy that's real easy to run on, right? So he's a big high leg kick. That's where this comes in. So we've got the stopwatch. We're going to take the time that it takes the pitcher to deliver the ball to home plate. And so when he lifts his left foot, if he's a right-handed pitcher, I'm going to start this. And then when the catcher catches it, I'm going to stop it. 1-1-3. 1-1-3, we're not running on a 1-1-3 unless you're like Ricky Henderson. Even Ricky might have a hard time running on that. So 1-1-3, right, I got that. Base runner comes back to the bag. Hey, 1-1-3 here. Probably not going to run, or definitely not going to run. Depends on the base runner, but I'm doing that every single time. So that's part of the tendencies. Does the guy slide step, right? I might remind him, hey, slide step, we're shutting it down here. We're not stealing on slide step. Maybe it's a guy that picks all the time. Maybe it's a guy that doesn't pick. So we're constantly talking about this stuff with the base runners. If it's a left-handed pitcher, I'm going to remind the guy, hey, late secondary here. We can't take a secondary when the guy lifts his leg because you could get picked off. Andy Pettitte used to get guys all the time. He'd lift his leg and he'd look home and the guy would secondary and then he would pick him off. And so every single time, I do it as a third base coach, but as a first base coach, you got to remind him every time, hey, late secondary here. Make sure he delivers to the plate. So you're reminding him again. Dirt ball reads is another big one. So we're going to read the ball in the dirt, especially in breaking ball counts. And so as a first base coach, you might say, hey, we got a breaking ball count here. There's 2 strikes. Watch the ball in the dirt here. Anticipate it. Let's move up a base. Another one is back picks. So whether it's from the catcher or from the first baseman, maybe it's a timing pick. Maybe we have first and second. First baseman is playing behind. And my job and responsibility is to watch that first baseman to make sure he's not sneaking back on a time pick from the pitcher. And also making sure that there's no back picks here from the catcher, that we're not coming behind for a back pick. Making sure also that when our runner gets their secondary lead, that they're not just hanging out there. So secondary lead and back. If they're not doing that properly, I'm watching that. I'm going to tell them, hey, we can't hang out there. We've got to get back to make sure that we're making sure that the catcher isn't going to want to back pick us here. I'm also usually watching the signs. So when the base runner's right here, we're watching the signs together, and I might just tell them what to be aware of. So, hey, we're stealing situation here. Be ready for the steal. Or maybe it's a hit and run situation. Hey, good time for hit and run here. Keep your eyes up. Like just reminding them of what to pay attention to and what to be aware of when it comes to the signs. So leads, I'm watching leads. I'm making sure that the leads are in the right spot, back part of the bag, or back corner to back corner, making sure that they're far enough off. If they're not far enough, tell them to get a little bit more. If they're too big, I'm going to tell them to shorten up a little bit. So that's another thing I'm watching for. And one other thing that will happen, and sometimes it's hard to hear, and I didn't mention this before, but this is another reason why, like a lot of people said when Adele was running, why isn't the first base coach yelling at him what to do? You've got to remember that you're in a big league stadium. Like there's a lot of people in there. And I know not a lot of people have played on an actual big league field during a game, but it is hard to hear. Think about when you see outfielders sometimes miscommunicate, or they don't hear the guy saying, I got it, or ball, whatever the communication is, and they bang into each other, right? That's because it's loud. When the ball is put in play, and I know some people are joking like, oh, there's not that many people in the crowd. It doesn't matter. When you're in a big league stadium, I've played in big league stadiums, like Dodger Stadium was packed, the loudest stadium I ever heard. When Manny Ramirez hit a home run in Dodger Stadium, it hurts. It was so loud, I got an instant headache. Like, that was the loudest I've ever been at a sporting event. He hit this huge home run, the place went bananas, and my head started throbbing. So I'm not saying it's that loud when Adele hits a ground ball down the third base line, but when the ball is put in play, and especially a diving play happens, like, the crowd starts to make noise. There's a lot of people there. And so you can't, it's hard to hear. Plus you have a helmet on, you're running, like, there's a lot of stuff going on. And so, and the first base coach is 90 feet away. He might be even more than 90 feet if he's back. And so you can't communicate very well at all on the field. Like I said, sometimes outfielders are right next to each other and they don't hear each other calling a ball because it's so loud in the stadium. So there's really no way I'm going to hear him from almost 100 feet away when the ball is put in play and people are screaming. But one other thing is, let's say there's a man on second base and you hit a single and you're rounding first base and the guy's scoring. Sometimes the first base coach can help you read that throw. Now, you're supposed to do it yourself again, but they help you read that throw. That ball's high, and they might say, yes, like, take second base. But a lot of times, honestly, it's even hard to hear that, and you're, like, right next to the guy. As you're rounding first base coach is right there. Like, that can be hard to hear. So I don't think people often understand. I guess it's like, for me, like, I've never been on a football field. I've never played an NFL game before. And so when people talk about, quarterbacks talk about not being able to communicate with people in certain stadiums because it's so loud in there, like, I have no idea how tough that is because I've never been in that situation. But I have been on a Major League Baseball field before in a game, and I'm telling you, it is tough to hear. It can be very tough to hear. Sometimes it can be impossible to hear. As a second baseman, just being able to talk to my shortstop who's not that far away, like, sometimes we can't hear anything that we're saying to each other. So I felt like when I was watching the comments and everyone's yelling at the first base coach should be communicating that, it's not always that easy. And I think a lot of times people put everything on, like, the first base coach or the third base coach, and it's not their responsibility to hold the hand of the runner. Like, a lot of things, it's the runner's job. It's the batter's job. It's the runner's job. There are definitely responsibilities. We went over a bunch of them right here. But those are, like, the main ones. So in my opinion, the Adele thing, that wasn't the first base coach's job. And if I'm the hitter, I'm just reading the ball and I'm doing what the ball tells me to do. So let me know. I'm sure I missed a bunch of things. Like, that was I just jotted those down real quick. There's a lot of things that happen in a game that if I were coaching, I would just do them. And, if I sat down and just kept thinking, I could probably write a lot more. But there's tons of stuff that we talk about. But again, directing the hitter out of the box really isn't one of them, at least in my opinion. So let me know what you think. If you have any questions, put in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, give it a thumbs up, all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you later.